my colleagues, Lynn Fernandez from our member services team, and Philip Mastrioni, a resident SEO strategist. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. First, all attendees are currently in listen-only mode, so if you have a question throughout the webinar, please submit those through your dashboard, and we'll take them at the end. I also want to let you know that this session will be recorded for future reference, and you will receive an email with a link to the recording within 24 hours. It will also include a copy of the presentation deck. So, in terms of what we're covering today, we've broken our content into two main categories. The first is comprised of things you need to consider when selecting a new website provider. And the second consists of questions around the actual switchover process. And again, we will wrap up by taking your questions at the end. We're going to kick off first with a poll. So if you could just take a moment to answer this question, that will really help us tailor our feedback here. Great, so we see this coming in. Just giving people a moment. Great. All right. So thank you. So it looks like we have a bit of a mix. We have many of you who are looking to make this change as soon as possible, and then others who are really still in the gathering information phase, which is fine. So thanks so much. I'm going to kick this over now to my colleague Philip to get it started.
Well, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. So just to jump right into this, when we're looking at the new online marketing provider, right off, first top 10 questions that you're going to want to ask, make sure you get these answers to. And the first here is, who owns the domain registration and renewal? So that's your actual domain name. That's really important because that's truly your name and you really should own it. But what tends to happen when you're setting up your website for the first time, oftentimes the company that you're working with will end up buying that on your behalf and owning it. Well, that turns into a problem when you're trying to switch over to a new provider because you don't actually own it or can make changes to it in order to point that to your new marketing provider's website. So it's really important to work on getting that into your control so that you have the ownership of it. Usually it's $10 to $12 a year for the renewal on that, so it's very worth making sure that you have that and full ownership of it. Next is going to be, what is the cost for setup and monthly hosting? Now, oftentimes what's going to happen is you're going to pay for design and for content and all kinds of things, and the monthly ongoing costs aren't as discussed, and that could really affect your budget. So it's really important to understand what your upfront costs are going to be and then what your monthly costs are going to be and whether or not you're going to be in some kind of contract with that, which is the next part here. Do you have a contract or are you locked into a contract? Ideally, you want something that gives you flexibility. If you aren't happy with the service, you want to be able to move on to a different provider. Of course, this isn't something you want to do on a regular basis. It's not a dental cleaning. We're not coming and changing your website every 6 months to a totally new design, but it's really important to make sure that when you want to, you can. You're not locked in for another year with payments, something along that line. Okay. The fourth here are other online marketing services offered, and this actually is a really pivotal one to make sure that you don't have to worry about having 3 or 4 different people all working together or trying to work together who are from different companies to help you out with your marketing. An SEO company trying to work with a website company, trying to work with an advertising company, it requires a lot more communication, a lot more wasted time and effort. So you'll end up spending a lot more money on just their communication with each other. So it's really important to have a single source that can do that. And the other part to this is, when you have a company that does your online marketing for you within their own system, there are certain efficiencies that they gain and things that they have built into their systems that are going to allow them to be even better for you. So working on their own sites that they've designed and developed is going to be better than them having to learn someone else's way that they've built that site and the things that they need to do, and they may find that it doesn't work as well. So make sure you look for a provider that has a proven track record of online marketing as well as solid design. Do they specialize in your industry? Well, this is really important, especially when we're looking in the medical field. They really need to know the factual way of presenting content. It's really important that they actually know the difference between a dental implant and an Invisalign, something along like that. You don't want them to have to spend a ton of time researching and learning your industry. They should already know what works for your industry so that they could jump in right away and get things going. You don't want to wait 2, 3 months for them to do market research, industry research, competitive analysis. You want someone that already has a group of marketing campaigns that they've done for other clients that they know works, so that they can just translate that to yours. The next is content. Is it provided or do you need to supply it myself? Well, I think we'd all like to write the next great American novel, but probably most of us haven't even penned a single page. It's really hard to start with writing content, even if you are a subject matter expert. A lot easier to do copy editing, to make adjustments and tailor it towards your particular practice. So this is a really important one. This can be a huge time saver if the company is going to provide the content or provide content writers that are going to create that for you. In my experience, content has been one of the things that has delayed launches of websites when it's not something that the provider is creating for you. So, is support available 24/7 and is it domestic or outsourced? So I think it's really important that you make sure that there is someone that you can call and talk to at the very least during normal business hours. 24/7 is great, but I think that we all know that we don't work in our offices 24/7. So for the most part, as long as we can go ahead and get something taken care of same day, that's going to be the biggest benefit. Support being domestic or outsourced, and this is a big thing when we were talking about very specific requests that you might have. Tech support being different than marketing support, and the marketing support where you may be asking someone, is there a way that I could take this image and make this look better on my site, or how should it flow, or what kinds of pages can I have, or can you help me with some of the support on some of the additional services that you have. Those kinds of things are really important to be domestic. I think a lot of things can get lost in translation from the outsourced side when it's overseas. Do I have the ability to update my website? This is actually super important because you don't want to have to put in a change request or something along those lines, fill out a form or an email, or have to call someone. If you're doing something really minor, like maybe changing a closing time for your hours on your website on your contact page from 5 o'clock to 4 o'clock, or maybe saying that you're now going to be closed on Mondays or Sundays, something like that. That should be something that you can just log in, make that one change, or maybe there's a service that you're not providing anymore. And so that's something that's really important, to be able to just go in there and make that update without having to worry about how difficult that's going to be. So with that, you also want the ability to be able to reach out to someone, and that's also part of that number 7. Can I update the website, or is it easy for me to put in a request for an update? You want to make sure that for the most part, anything on your site can be updated. Can you put images there? Can you change content? Can you change the color of things on there? Things like that are really important. Is the website design mobile friendly? So this is something in the last year or two that's become even more important. And I would say, next year this will probably be, a number 5 or number 4. And simply because you have nearly 50% of your traffic, especially when it's in the research phase, coming from a mobile or tablet. If the website design is not mobile friendly, it doesn't load quickly, it's not geared towards someone on a mobile device, that person will leave your website and look for another person, another competitor. And so if someone's searching, and we've all tried something like this where you use your Siri or your Google Now, dentist near me, something like that. Now that is going to be pulled up on your mobile device, and that's the results you're going to see. Now, if your site isn't mobile friendly and you're searching on a mobile device, Google will not show that result in its search page. And so you are just completely lost from being visible. So it's very important to be mobile friendly. And then will I be charged for upgrades when technology and algorithms change? So from the technology side, this is actually something that we've come across a lot because we had people who had let's say a WordPress site built, a couple years ago, and it looks really nice, but the problem is within a few months, the actual content management system is actually out of date because they upgrade from technology and security, things like that. And you do have to go in and click update, or you have to approve things, or you have to make sure something doesn't break when it updates. So it's really important to make sure that whoever you go with is going to do that upgrade. Make sure that when it upgrades that nothing breaks. And then from an algorithm standpoint, that's going to be something from Google. So if Google changes the way that they want to see websites in order to rank you better, it's really important to make sure that the companies are staying on top of that and make those adjustments into the code so that you don't have to manually go in there or anything like that. So those are the top 10 questions that are really important to ask. But the next one here is kind of taking that a step further. When you do switch to a new provider, is that going to affect my rankings with Google? And there's really two ways to look at this. One is if you're going to keep the same domain. And I think for the most part, this is where we find our clients. The important thing here is you don't want to lose your old pages that worked. It's really important to bring over that content that's performing. If you are changing the structure, which tends to happen when you go to a new provider, you want to make sure it gets redirected. So there you can see it's aboutus.html, and it just goes to about us. A lot cleaner, a lot nicer. Google likes that better, and it's best practice. But the old site may not have done that. It's also a really good time to look at your content and just make sure it's updated. You want to make sure that it's factual. If it says that you graduated 20 years ago, but really it's now 25, those are the kinds of things you want to make sure you change. Keeping the same domain but moving to a new provider, you shouldn't see a large ranking change. If you get a new domain, however, it does. Yep, there we go. Sorry about that. If you get a new domain, however, it does require a couple things. You do have to put a request to Google to index the new domain. You have to redirect from your old site to the new one. And then you have to use one of Google's tools called Search Console to actually request a change. And you're not going to gain any rankings by changing your name. In fact, we see only about a 75 to 95% retention of rankings with this method. So we usually recommend to say if you're going to switch to a new provider and you're looking to get a new domain name, that you want to do those in two separate steps. Typically, it's best to move to that new provider, get settled into that provider, and then go ahead and change your domain name. And that's usually going to be the cleanest way for you to be able to do both of those pieces. We do see in some cases where our clients can't get their old domain name, so they have to set up a new domain and switch over. And so when that happens, there are some things that we've done that can help that out. But again, you have the potential to lose some rankings. Okay, and on the next slide here, we talk a little bit more about traffic. So you had rankings. What about your actual traffic to your website? Again, you shouldn't see significant changes immediately after the switch. Now, one good thing, though, is we typically see an increase in traffic. Now, when you're looking at a new marketing provider, as long as their systems are built well, they're built search engine friendly, then you have the potential to see an increase in traffic. Part of that is that Google likes to see fresh new content. So you've updated your content as you've moved over. You've probably added some. You maybe got rid of some of the old, kind of fluff content or inaccurate content, refreshing some of the old content. All of that sends signals to Google that you're working on your site, it's being updated, and it's fresher, and that's definitely going to be a positive experience. Okay. And then the next slide we see this often where people are asking, can I keep my Google Analytics account? And that's a yes. Definitely can keep that. Now, Google Analytics, if you aren't aware, is a nice free tool that Google provides that lets you see the traffic and where visitors are coming from, things like that, onto your website. it's great to have historic data. So maybe you've had your website for a few years and you've got an account on there. We've got a couple years of data, and you go, I can compare maybe March of 2015 to March of 2016 to see how am I actually doing year over year, since the industry is very seasonal. So this is really great. We can move that analytics account, and there's no downtime. We can even add a second account if we needed to, in case you didn't have access to the old one, but we were trying to get access. That way, again, there's no loss of data, but we can see everything moving forward. So yes, definitely can keep that Google Analytics account. And then at this point, I want to hand it over to Lynn. She'll talk a little bit more about links coming into the site.
All right, thank you, Phil. So I'm sure a common question is, what happens to links pointing to my website today? So at ProSites, we do everything that we can to ensure all existing links that are pointing to your site will be directed to the relevant page. So let's say your previous website was focusing on general cosmetic dentistry, but then as you move over to your new provider, you want a new page that focuses on Invisalign. We can redirect that page to match exactly where it needs to go. And if there isn't if there are links that aren't that aren't relevant, then we can definitely remove them. But we'll work with you to make sure that all of those links are working appropriately and going to the right destinations. So next slide. And so another big question is, can I keep the same content as far as the text and images from my old website? It really depends on the current provider and who owns that content. So you can determine that by, if you know that you paid to have that content personally created for you, then it is absolutely yours. And if that's the case, then you can bring that over to ProSites so we can incorporate that onto your site. And so can the website look the same? So you may just want a new provider, but you still like the look of your old site. We do have a custom design team that can match your previous site styles and personalize it to your preference. But at ProSites, we also have a large library of pre-designed site styles that are actually also responsive to where, as Phil said earlier, mobile and tablets are a big thing of being able to research and view. And with our responsive sites, they are actually compatible to format to fit any platform that you're viewing this on. So it does make your updates a lot easier, and it does make it easier for your patients to look up your information. And so how easy is it to update my website, and who updates it, me or the website provider? In general, it does depend on your previous host again. So something that is really important to ask is, do you have the access to do that? Do you have that ability to make those simple changes any time of the day, so that you don't have to wait during regular business hours? With ProSites, we actually offer that feature. You have an online account where you can access your website editor at any time of the day. It is comparable to Microsoft Word, so it's a similar setup with a taskbar toolbar up top, and does allow for you to make those updates to text and photos, and it's accessible on any browser. What is nice is that it's easy to communicate with our in-house member services. We're available 12 hours out of the day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Pacific time. We are located in Southern California, so you can definitely reach out to us via phone, email, or even live chat if you have any questions or need assistance with those updates. Okay. And what kind of support is available for design and technical details? So just as we said earlier, we're available 12 hours a day. When you look at your provider, you want to see if that particular company has that available access, if they have those professionals that are there for you to answer those questions, to be able to make those updates in a timely manner. And with ProSites, like I said, we have unlimited support. We are US-based with our member service representatives. We do also have a set of teams. So we have our onboarding teams that walk you through the process. We have our specialized SEO teams that can help you with that information, and then again, member services who are there to walk you through the process of doing those updates. We also have a dedicated domains team who works with major registrars to make sure that your domain transition from previous host to your new host is simple as possible. All we really need is your username and password to your domain. And once you can provide that to us, we take care of the rest of it for you. So there isn't anything that you would have to worry about as far as renewals, transfers, emails, and things like that. What is nice about ProSites as well is that on average, we have a 90% same-day request resolution. So if you send in an email request in the morning, it will get 90% chance it'll get done by end of business that day. All right. So.
Yep, that's mine. Okay, so thank you guys. All right, so any other risks to be aware of? One thing is transparency is best. What you want to make sure is that you have the ability to test drive someone's system. You want to be able to go in there and make sure that you can make the types of edits that you want. You want to make sure that you can do things like uploading images, editing text, adding a new page, removing a page, adding something to the menu. Those types of things are really important to be able to do. You want to also make sure that it works well with whatever system you have. So if you have, whether it's an older computer or maybe you want to use your Mac or something like that, you want to make sure that there's no compatibility concerns. Really important to do that. You want something that has, a couple weeks free trial. You don't want to have to pay up front for it. ProSites, we offer a 14-day free trial. You get the full experience. There's no limitations. You could see all of the different designs. We don't limit the designs on the free trials or anything like that, so you have the full library. And you can go in there, edit it, and what's great about this and something you want to look for in providers is you want this to be something public as far as being able to share with other people for them to look at. Make sure you can get opinions. Now, it's not obviously going to be public and be your name and things like that, but it'll have some kind of way that you can share it so people can look at it and say, that looks really good. I think that's well, done. It's professional feeling. Make sure you do that and get the feedback from your peers, things like that. So that's actually a really important thing to do. So, all right. So in the next portion here, we'll talk a little bit about questions on the actual process for switching over, and Lynn's really the expert in that, so I'm going to hand it back to her to talk about the next 3 slides here on how that works.
All right, thank you, Phil. So what is involved in the switching process? So something to be aware of are the policies and contractual agreements with your current host. So you want to know if there's a specific timeline and if there's any cancellation fees, something like that. So once you get that information gathered, you can set up your new website with your new provider. Just as Phil said, you have a 14-day trial period to where you can go in and kind of create or start that process of creating a website. Once you are ready to transition over, as I had said earlier, with the domain process, all you need is your domain login information, and then we would go ahead and take care of that transfer over. And so once the information is given to our domains, then they can go ahead and take care of that portion for you. So. And next big question, will there be downtime? So with other website providers, it's likely to depend on the ability of your existing provider. So it's really getting that communication with them, letting them know, getting that domain information. With ProSites, there is no downtime. We have that trial site ready and waiting, and as soon as our domains has access to your domain, they can seamlessly transfer it over. So in the meantime, your visitors will still see your previous site. As soon as our domain team goes in there, switches those domains over to us, it's a seamless transition. It's almost like a blink of an eye that you'll see one site and then the next site. And so what's also nice is that if your previous provider is hosting emails for you, you can still use those existing email addresses. We can also take care of that for you. All right. So what happens after I sign up? Now, once you sign up, within 24 hours, you will be hearing from our onboarding team. They will actually reach out to you with an introductory phone call. In that phone call, of course, they'll welcome you to ProSites and advise that they will be sending a set of emails out to you that do need to be filled out. And then in those email forms, you'll receive a welcome checklist, which will itemize all the points that you are looking to have on your website. An email setup form, again, to get a list of those existing emails so that way that transition can be smooth, as well as a header request form, which is if you are looking to implement your logo onto your site, then again, we're looking for those specifications to make sure it's exactly how you want it on there. You also have a semi-custom form if you are looking to really customize your site and make it personal to you. So from really beginning to end, we have a point of contact for you to reach out to walk you through the process and answer any questions that you may have during these steps. And so that's pretty much it. That's all I have for today.
Great. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you,
right.
Philip. I'm going to field some questions now. Give me one moment. I'll pull them up. Perfect. So let's see. The first one, I had someone build me a website a few years ago, and I'm not sure how to access it. What would you need from me in order to switch it over?
Okay, I'll take that one. So great question. So we see this actually a lot where, a nephew or something like that built a website for someone, and it's just been sitting there for a couple of years, and they don't even know how to get to it or anything. In general, what we can do if you want to keep the domain name, I kind of talked about that a little earlier. That's the one area where you really want to try to see if you can get that. If you still have contact with that person, they may own it. You would want to try to bring that over. Other than that, our team can actually pull all the content and information from the website without having any access to it, just like you copy and paste. And so we can integrate that into the new site. So there's really not much we need. The domain, if you're not planning on changing the name, that's really the only thing you would want to try to provide. If for some reason you're not able to, then at that point we could always just come up with a new name for you and kind of go from there.
Great. Thanks, Philip. Here's one. What happens to my Facebook page?
Ooh, I could talk about that as well. Okay. So, this really doesn't tie into the Facebook page as much, but it's really important that when you do change your website provider, oftentimes you're going to be changing the look and feel of your site. So that's something because on your actual Facebook page, you can customize it with, a cover photo and some things like that. Any other social media accounts actually as well, you want to make sure that it now matches your new site and the style. So if you have a big image on the front and, that's kind of your main hero image, I think is what they call it, you usually want to use something similar on your Facebook page, and that way the branding's aligned. If you do change domain names again, you want to make sure that's updated on your Facebook page and any other social media so that people who are looking at you can make sure that they get to your new website. Great.
The next one, who will be managing the DNS? Can we still manage it ourselves?
Okay, so I could take that one. All right, Lynn's looking at me like either one of us. We can actually work with you in both ways. So you can definitely still own the DNS, and I think that for a lot of people, especially if they have like an IT department or they have multiple locations, and so they have maybe a group that helps manage some of the communication and infrastructure, that's where we see this come up more often. That's definitely something you can do. We can also do it for you on your behalf if DNS sounds a little daunting, which it kind of is, all the domain stuff. Definitely can be a little more complicated, and one minor change can take down your whole website and email. So,
okay. Next question is actually about email. What happens to my email? We currently use 16 accounts.
Okay. So, Lynn, maybe that one's more you? Yep. All right.
Okay, so with our emails, we do offer up to 10 emails for free. Anything beyond that, there's a fee of $50 for, I believe, 5 additional emails, but we can absolutely still accommodate you with supporting those.
And just to add on to that, you don't necessarily lose your name. So if you're, Bob C at mydentalpractice.com, we can definitely use that in the new one. Okay.
Perfect. Here's a question. We use DemandForce. Is that hard to integrate into a new provider?
So we've probably done 1,000 demand force integrations, um, and that's actually something that we can definitely do. Now, there's a few different ways. We usually need just some minor access, but yes, we definitely can do that. Oh, and I think there's one more question from Randy. Let's see, it just popped up here. Sorry if
You have
it
access
was
to that?
hidden from me. Oh, yep. So here, I'll go ahead and read it. So if I hate my current site, sorry, and do not have any ties to the current domain name, is it more cost effective to start over and create another site? So there's two things. If you have good rankings with your existing site, so someone searches for, not your name necessarily, because you usually will do well with that, but let's say it's implants in city, implants in San Diego, something like that, or Invisalign. If you already kind of rank well for that, even if it's a site you're not really too happy with, that second step that we talked about is really a good way to go, where you could create a whole new site with a new domain name, and then we put that request into Google saying, hey, we changed our website address and it's now here. That's definitely the best way, I think, to do it. With ProSites, because we have a lot of stock content types of things, we can get you up and running pretty quickly, and all that can be edited. So I think, yeah, starting over is not a bad thing, because um, you're not really starting over, because especially with ProSites, we already took care of most of that beginning work, and we can transfer over what was working on your old site. So definitely some positive things that you can do there when you already have an established site. Now, if it's not doing well, then you can kind of just scrap it. So, starting over from scratch, going with one of the nice new looking designs, sometimes it just makes it a lot easier, and you can say goodbye to the old thing that wasn't doing you any good.
Great.
Okay.
Looks like I have one more, Philip.
Okay.
I currently send out a lot of newsletter emails and reminders to patients. Will there be any issues when switching providers?
Okay. So that can be a big issue. And the reason for that is that there are some limitations, and this is for providers in general, on how many emails you can send out at a given time. Because of that, it's a good thing to talk to them before you sign up to find out, is there any kind of limitation. I know at ProSites, I think you can send, 600 or something like that in a day. I think, was there a number? 200, sorry, 200. Now, if you're sending more than 200 emails in a given moment, then you probably want to utilize a third-party system like a reminder system, something like that, because usually you're not going to send out 200 reminders, within an hour. Newsletters and things like that, usually it works best to go through a tool. And so there's definitely some things to consider when you're doing that. Some providers aren't going to kind of help you with that limitation and monitoring. And if it does get marked as spam, you actually could be it could cause a lot of issues with sending emails from that account in the future. So we put a lot of pieces in place to make sure that if you are sending something that looks like spam, or maybe your email got, someone got access to it, something like that, we do see some alerts and things like that. So make sure that the provider, you talk to them about those things. So.
Great. That seems to be all we had for questions. If anyone has any more, please feel free to submit it. Otherwise, I'm showing you a slide here that includes links to various resources. And as I said, you will receive an email within 24 hours that's going to include this presentation deck as well as a link to the recording. And immediately following the wrap-up of this, you will also be taken to a short survey, which we would appreciate your time in taking just to help us get better and provide you what you're really looking for. Thank you all again. So appreciate the time, and we hope to speak with you soon. Thanks so much.